Welcome to the Think Like a CFO podcast, where we dig into not only what it takes to start a business, but to keep your business thriving for years to come using my signature CFO money method framework. I'm your host, Melissa Houston, and I am a CPA and business financial coach. I have over 20 years of experience in business, and it is my passion to share my knowledge of business finance and personal finance with other women. You can also follow me with my column at Forbes.com or my column with Entrepreneur.com. Cody is a serial entrepreneur who started to learn finance at the age of 19. He was a millionaire at the age of 27 and bankrupt at the age of 28. However, he retired early at 39 to pursue a passion of teaching financial literacy, successful mindset, and entrepreneurship that the schools refused to teach. After spending 20 years in finance and opening 13 businesses as a serial entrepreneur, Cody discovered the secrets to being financially free. At the point in our lives that we need financial literacy the most, our schools are failing to teach anything about what money is and how it really works. Cody is on a mission to change young people's financial trajectory through education and helping parents talk to their kids about money. Cody is the host of the Money Talkers podcast. Hey, Cody, I am so happy to have you here today. Welcome to the Think Like a CFO podcast.
Melissa, I am excited to be here. I love podcasting. I had you on mine, and now I get to guest up on yours, so I'm excited.
That's right. Why don't you share with everybody what your podcast is about?
Oh, absolutely. So I started a podcast called Money Talkers, and really what the basis of it was I have always had a problem in my heart, my soul, my mind, whatever it is, that we don't teach anything about money. We don't teach about entrepreneurship, and we really don't teach about mindsets in our schools. And so the first time I got into a finance class, I realized in college, and I realized why don't I know any of these things? And it was driving me nuts. So 20 years later, started a podcast, interview super high achievers and business people and parents. And I try to give parents the tools to connect with their kids around those subjects so that it's not such a scary subject and they can follow people that have been successful already. And then also I do a second piece called the High Impact Series. And so it's the one question. And so in that, it's usually less than 10 minutes and a parent can listen to it and go start a money talk with their kids so that they can build the relationship to be able to talk about money in their households.
And I personally am a huge fan of your podcast. I love it. And I love the approach that you take. And, you're just filling such a knowledge void. You're helping so many people with talking about personal finances and helping entrepreneurs with their finances as well. So I commend you for that.
It's my little way to try and put something good out into the world. I've been fortunate and blessed. It's something that it was important to me. I wanted to change the curriculum in the world, but that seems to be like moving a glacier. And so what I did is I realized that there was a portion that was a disconnect between parents and their kids, because as our kids get older and they get out in the world, you want to have these money talks with them. But if you haven't laid the groundwork and the seeds, it's much more difficult than if you could start to lay those things earlier. Our kids are going to be able to go out and change the world before they get tied down from life, mortgages and cars and wives and husbands and kids and all the fun stuff that keeps you from being allowed to go out and be an entrepreneur. And to me, basically an entrepreneur is a problem solver. And so if the kids don't have all those tie downs and they're armed with knowledge and possibility, they'll be able to go out and change the world.
Oh, I love that. That's so powerful. And it's so true. And it's so true that it starts with the parents too, right? And I'm not a blamer of parents by any means, because it's just the pattern that's been perpetuated over generation and generation. But it's great that you're planting that seed with the parents and you're explaining to them how to talk to their kids about money at a young age so they are prepared for the world. So that is just fabulous. So if there's any listeners out there who like what they're hearing, go check out Money Talks with Cody Loughlin. That's a tongue twister. So tell us about the business that you are in currently.
Well, currently I have 3.
You're a busy entrepreneur.
Yeah, I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've had 14. 10 of them have been unsuccessful. And by unsuccessful, I mean I didn't exit them properly, which is another fancy way for saying I failed miserably at some of them. But
it sounds like you're being a little too hard on yourself, but I'll let you continue.
No, there's a few that fell right in that category, I promise. But no, currently I have a real estate development company. I also own a company. Well, I have Money Talkers that I've kind of been doing more as I guess it's almost like a nonprofit. It's been out there for trying to just get this information and things out in the world. And then I own another company that sells extended warranties nationally. It's very niche, interesting company. But my previous big business was I owned 5 RV dealerships.
And is that the business where you've got that fascinating story that we're going to touch on today?
It's got some stories, I can tell you that. But yes, I have had. It was something that I came into. I'd never been in an RV dealership before, and I had the owner was an older guy, and he said, he was looking for someone that he wanted to sell the company to internally. And so I took the leap of faith. He wanted me to grow it. The company, when I got there, was doing $9 million a year. And within 6 years later, we were doing $51 million, and we sold to a publicly traded company.
That is amazing.
Yeah, there's some lessons I got along the way. Before that I was a commercial banker, and to get to being the commercial banker, there's a bit of a story to that too. But in the commercial banker world, I got to go into thousands of businesses in 3 years, and I really got to see patterns and learn how to run a business. It really wasn't the industry, it was the owner that made the difference, and I could almost tell within 15 to 20 minutes of walking into a business what I was going to be dealing with. And so I patterned myself on the successful people that I saw. It's like Tony Robbins always says, like, success leaves clues. And so I started picking up clues. Luckily, I've been given that part of my life is I can usually see when things are right or wrong pretty quickly. When I look at things, I see patterns. And so I just patterned after the successful people that I saw, which is a much better way to do things than going guns blazing out on your own.
For sure. Before we get to your success tips, because I'm super interested in that, can we talk about the story where you had a business that in your words failed and the lessons that you learned from that? Because I love that story and I feel that it's going to help a lot of entrepreneurs to hear this.
Well, I will tell you this. One thing about being an entrepreneur, a lot of times it's lonely because you think you're the only one in your situation, right?
But you're
I
not.
no, not at all. Look, I always laugh because I said if there was truth serum before you went into one of those like Chamber of Commerce events, it would be like the most fun thing ever. Like everyone would walk out of there so much more benefit, so much more benefits than they do going in there and just being like, business is great. Here's my card. Call me, right? Like, no, every person that in that room has got something on their mind keeping them up at night. Nobody's business is just going straight line. This is super easy, right? Or they're not at the chamber event in the first place. And so I started off, I opened up a company at 24 years old, no idea what I was doing. My parents were entrepreneurial. My dad passed away when I was 19, but I didn't realize at the time that he was taking me on side hustles a lot of times. Like that's what you'd call it now. So he would have like little tiny businesses, and he would have his normal things that he were doing. And then we would go like, display water purifiers, or we would go to like this real estate thing, or we would do all these things. My mom was an entrepreneur, so I just always assumed I could be an entrepreneur. What we didn't do is we never talked about money in my household. Nothing really about budgeting or how to record and how to personal finance at all. So long story short, came out of school, decided I wanted to own a mortgage company, worked for one for like, I don't know, 6 months and opened up my own. At that time, really didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just fumbling through like most people do. And what do I do next? Oh, I need this. Oh, what do I do that? I need this. So long story short, within 3 years, I had $1 million business, had a real estate brokerage, had a foreclosure website, and then I also owned a construction company. And I thought that I was on a rocket ship. I thought I was just like, man, this business thing is easy, right? I've got it all figured out. It's no problem. What it turned out to be was a bottle rocket. And so I had 4 real estate based businesses in South Florida during the heyday of '04 to '08. And when the economy turned, I was ill prepared to handle that. I was levered to the hill. I managed everything out of the bank account. I didn't even keep P&Ls. I didn't even file tax returns, to be straightforward with you. And when it blew up big time. So at 27 years old, I was a millionaire, which is a weird thing to say. Had I known I could sell the company at the time, I would have, and I would have walked away with probably $1 million at the time. And at 27, I had no idea. It was just like, whenever I needed money, it was just, well, do we have some in the bank account? Me and my partner. I was like, yeah, all right, we'll take $5,000. Like it was just, we didn't know, And we knew. I would say that. I wouldn't say we didn't know. We knew we weren't doing it right, but we just didn't care. right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a focus for us.
The
It was
money was
always,
coming in, everything felt good.
yeah, it was always
Yeah.
sales. It was always marketing. Like it was always, we never really cared about the back end stuff. And so when it blew up, I ended up, I went from being a millionaire at 27 on paper to being $700,000 in the hole, foreclosures, IRS tax liens. I should have filed bankruptcy. I didn't. And no job and no career paths or opportunities because no one wanted to talk to me as a mortgage person.
Yeah.
So I went from like the highest high to like the lowest low within a year.
So gratefully, like, you've put that behind you, and I'm sure that you've learned lessons from it, and valuable lessons, I would imagine. So what was the big takeaway from that whole experience for you?
So one of the like most sobering things about that was, I went into a pretty downward feeling. I mean, I was literally at 27. I had 30 employees. I thought I had the world by the tail, and it was all gone. Like almost. I mean, it wasn't even like a slow crash. It was just like a 6 month. Everything dropped out of the bottom. There was everyone. All the employees just kept leaving one by one. I even had some that were sleeping in my office at some nights because they couldn't pay rent anymore. I went from thinking that I was just really, really good at business to being basically depressed, sitting in my foreclosed condo, looking at the beach. And my wife just said, what are you going to do about this? And it was such a defining moment for me because I had to get up and like look at the mirror and go, you're really bad at business. And here I was a year earlier, everyone thinking that I was fantastic at it. And I was thinking I was fantastic at it. But in all reality, I really wasn't. I was really, really bad at it because I was really, really good at making the bell ring and bringing in money. I've always said that the only two things you need to focus on to bring revenue is leads and conversion. And it's made me a lot of money in my life. But I was sitting there and I said, man, I'm just not good at this. Like I screwed everything up. I'm in the hole. I have 2 years with the tax returns I need to file for like 4 companies and my personals. Like just, I don't have any prospects. And I stand in there and I said, you know what? I need to face the fact. And so I did. And I said, what am I going to, and she said the words that my mom had always said to me, like, so what are you going to do about it? Right. And so I was like, no, you don't understand. The economy did this to me. The business did this to me. And then my wife's like, so what are you going to do about it? And I was like, you know what? None of that stuff happened to me. It happened for me. So I went out and I said, well, who knows how to run businesses? And I'm like, well, good business owners. I'm like, but they're not going to tell me everything. So I said, well, what else could I do? And I said, who can go into a business and learn all the stuff about a business and get their financials and really like dig into it? And I was like, a banker could do that. And so I became a
Not
banker.
thinking that's about business after all, are you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a good problem solver, but I happen to be a classic visionary where like I don't like doing it consistently. So I'm really good at like on the spot problem solving. But I said, so like, I want to be a banker, and I strategically went after the position as a business banker, and then I did. I started going into businesses left and right, and I was going into 5, 6, 7 businesses a day. When my counterparts in the business banking world were going into a couple a week, I was trying to get into 6, 7 businesses a day because I just had this voracious, appetite to take down and figure out like what were they doing that I didn't know how to do.
So what were they doing?
So yeah, so there's the big reveal, right?
You can't leave us hanging.
So the big reveal was this: it didn't matter the industry trend and the industries, right? I had doctors that were 800 credit scores and millions of dollars in the bank, and I had doctors that were 500 credit scores and couldn't pay attention. And so what I found within about 15 to 20 minutes was, did they know their numbers? It didn't really necessarily matter what the numbers were. I never learned this. I always looked for problems because people brought me problems. But if you learn how to read your financials and you pay attention to them, or you have somebody that does this for you that can raise red flags, you find the problems in your business from your P&L and balance sheet, and then you go solve the problem. And I watched them do this over and over again. And I was like, I telling you, I could walk in and I'd have a 10-minute conversation, and I knew whether the bank's loans were going to be good or the bank's loans were going to have some problems. And I was going to have some real uncomfortable conversations with that business owner, because I'd say, hey, where are you at this month over last month? We're good. It's like, okay, where are you at this month over last year? And they're like, business is up and down. I'm like, no, like specifically, like, let's talk about where are you in your comparisons? And they would say, well, I'll call my accountant and see if they can put a P&L together and give it to you. And I'll have them email you some stuff if you want to email me a list. And I'm like, but you don't know your business, man. In my head, I didn't say that out loud, but in my head, I was like, because I knew even if they didn't know, Like I can't stand doing accounting, but I love looking at a P&L and balance sheet now because I know that that is where the success of my business lies. And it doesn't matter that I don't know how to make entries. I don't know credits and debits. I hate them. They drive me nuts. But you know what? If you hand me a P&L and a balance sheet and you can give me some comparisons, I'll find you problems in 2 seconds because I did it over and over and over again. I met on my own P&L and balance sheet from the dealerships daily. And
And everything that you're saying right now just makes me wanna get up and dance because I love hearing that, and I find so many entrepreneurs are so disconnected from their numbers, and this is really the information gap that I really wanna help entrepreneurs close, is knowing your numbers and how incredibly important that is.
I couldn't even tell you like, and I went from having this really good success and I didn't know my numbers at all. So it's like, oh, that's kind of counterintuitive, but it wasn't when I needed to have, when I had problems. Like I didn't build myself to weather the storm. And I knew that there were ups and downs in economies. I just didn't really understand what it was like. And so when there are more millionaires and more wealth created during recessions for people, than there are during the good times in the bull markets. Like we've been in one for 12 years, but the people who were able to buy real estate in 2009, 2010 have tripled or quadrupled their asset base. But you know what? They didn't do it in 2009 and 2010. They did it in 04, 05, 06, 07, 08 because they were prepared for when the opportunity came. And when people say they got lucky, it's when preparation meets opportunity. And so if you are able to watch your business and know your numbers and build yourself just like basic personal income or personal finance, like if you've got money in the bank, you can weather storms, right? If you are not taking all of the resources and depleting them to the deal to the business, and when the problem comes or when the opportunity shows up, you're ready to take it because the best opportunities are looking for two things. They're looking for speed and they're looking for the ability to close on it. If you don't have those two things in place, then you're gonna miss the big swings that you can get, or when the hiccup comes, because it will. As a small business owner, it's all we do daily is deal with hiccups. When the big hiccups come, if you don't know your numbers and you haven't put away and built yourself a little bit of a fortress, then you're more than likely going to go out of business.
It's so true. It's sad but true.
It's the
And
downfall for entrepreneurs, but nobody. Where do we teach this stuff? We don't talk about it. There's no entrepreneur school. They come in and they go, hey, look at this stuff. Like I just happened to strategically go into these businesses and was like, oh wow, right? Like the company owners that knew like they needed to cut personnel, right? It's a hard thing to do as a business owner, but you have to look at the business supporting so many people that you have to make the tough decisions, and that's why you wear the crown, right? If you are watching your numbers, if you know your business is in and out, you can strike fast. You can make decisions fast. They're not any more fun in 2 months from now as they are in 1 week from today, but they will have big impacts on when and how fast you make your decisions if you know your numbers.
absolutely. Now, would you say that it was hard for you to learn? The answer is no.
I would say this though, it wasn't. I don't feel that I'm done learning.
I
Right.
love
That's
that.
why I hesitate because I think the evolution never stops once you start to get in there. Now, when I had my eyes opened and I realized, I think all along I knew, right? I knew dropping off the box, the banker's box of documents at the accountant's office in April and being like, tell me what I owe was, I knew it was wrong. I knew it wasn't a good way to do business. What I didn't know is what I was setting myself up for. Like I just didn't listen because I didn't prioritize that part of the business. And so I would say like learning the lesson was very difficult because ultimately it cost me very dearly. But I would tell you this, I didn't file bankruptcy because I wanted to feel that lesson.
Is that right?
Well, it was more in the fact that like I needed to change myself, and I felt the best way to do that was, yeah, I guess better or worse was to feel that pain, was to go, hey, like you need not just like, oh, you had a bad business hiccup, like you need a life lesson, dude. I needed to learn personal finance. I needed to understand and study business. I needed to live within my means. I needed to build a fortress. And what I did at 29, when I finally came out of my funk, I started doing this stuff. I said, you know what? I learned about FIRE, which is the acronyms FIRE for financially independent, retire early. And I was like, my mind was blown. And I was like, I want to do that by the time I'm 39. Like here I am. My whole goal in life was just to get back to being broke, right? And just get out of debt. Like I just couldn't. And here I am. I go, I'm gonna retire in 10 years. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yep. And I made a plan and a goal and I did it.
That's awesome.
But I had a target, right? And so when I was weighing out, decisions, like I didn't feel like giving up the $6 latte was taking away from me. Like I think a lot of times people think when they look in their businesses and they're like, "Oh, I've got to cut costs, like it's going to be taking away from me or cost more business for me or whatever." What I did is I looked at it as the alternative of what I get, right? I get to get out of debt. I get to be financially independent. And the same thing for the business. Like you get to stay in business, you get to build more, you get to come back, you get to survive, right? It's not taking away. And that's the part where, for me, I wanted to learn that lesson and it was a big takeaway from me was to make decisions fast, to learn from your decisions, and then find what you're going to be, successful at and what you're not. All of your ideas as an entrepreneur, you think are great, right? You're like, this is great. Or otherwise you wouldn't do it, right? But we sell ourselves all the time. And so, you've got to find out if your idea is good or not fast. So don't be hesitant and pull the trigger, right? Also,
But to also add to that point is even the best ideas, if you're not managing your finances well, they will crash and burn.
that's the thing. You've got to know those numbers,
Yeah.
right? That's because if you're doing what I said, like if you have an idea and you go chase it, first of all, we're real prone to shiny object syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Which is like,
Yeah.
oh, what's squirrel? Like the
Yeah.
whole like, yeah, like everybody's like, oh, you know what? Like, I've got a painting business, but you know what? Cryptocurrency selling looks like it's really hot, and it's like, wait, no, like you're a painter, be really good
Yeah.
at painting, right? Like get back.
Yeah.
But the part of knowing your numbers is whether you can and can't chase. And if you are tracking things, pretty quickly whether it was a good idea or not a good idea. If you're not tracking them, they kind of just time suck. And then you end up, taking away from all over the place. And if you're chasing an object, you're chasing one of those shiny objects and you're determined and you think it's going to work, you will show up in your numbers, whether your other part of your business are suffering or not. But if you don't watch your numbers, who knows? It's just a gut feeling, and gut feelings will kill businesses.
Yeah, and for sure. Like I always talk about, the entrepreneurs who are talking about, I have 7-figure businesses, multiple 7-figure, whatever. And then there's the other entrepreneur who, might be making 6 figures, but they're pulling in way more profit than the one bragging about the revenue numbers. I mean, would you agree that it's better to be small and make profit than it is to be big and crash and burn?
Yes. So it is way better to be small and profitable than it is to be way big and burn.
Mhm.
It is also way better to be big and profitable. I can tell you
Yep.
that.
Yep.
So,
But if you
um,
build on the small and profitable,
yes.
you get there and you don't have the growth pains of, growing too quickly and then crashing and burning. I mean, the numbers can get complicated at times. And, you just really have to know them and you have to know what they're telling you in order to make your business thrive.
Yeah. I mean, I had 110 employees, sometimes up to 120 in the dealerships. And like, I had to read my P&Ls daily because it popped
Mhm.
up where the problems were.
Well, things could change on a dime with such large revenue numbers.
Oh yeah, I mean but it was also it's a very inventory heavy company because of dealerships, and so you've really got to dial in. We had 4 pages of P&L, so but we had such detail because you could stack it up. So I would tell you one of the tricks one of the best things I can tell people to do is in their tricks is that if they keep their numbers up to date with an accounting firm or outside inside, but take your profit and loss and stack it, right? Which you can do. So you can do a month to date profit and loss in like QuickBooks. You can stack last month to date, same time period, and then you can stack last year, same month, year to date, or month to date, and just line them up, even if you're not an accounting person, and just look and say, wait a minute, why is my electric bill $4,000 this month when it's always average $1,000 a month? And then you go find out like, oh, you've got some sort of equipment running all the time that Johnny didn't tell you about because somebody told Johnny they should run that equipment all the time, right? And it's unnecessary. So you can solve that problem, a whole lot faster than letting it compound and build. And that's the part where you don't really need to have an accounting brain, or an accounting, international accounting degree or anything. You can look and just go, well, that doesn't look right, and then just go chase down the problem.
Yeah,
Right?
investigate. Yeah, completely agree.
But you're finding and solving problems in minimal amount of time, which minimizes the damage, which means that
Exactly. You save money in the long run.
Yep. And
Yep.
also, it's not just saving too, because if you're doing something the wrong way, you're costing yourself from the revenue side.
That's
You're
true
spending
too.
time doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You can work. That's why people say like, oh, it's just hard work is what'll get you there. And I'm like, it's part of it. But if you're working hard, doing the wrong thing,
You're not working
you're
smart.
not going to get there. You're not going to get where you want to go. Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's where, the proof is in the numbers. I do a lot of internet marketing. I do a lot of lead generation and things. And so I'll have people bring me graphics or they'll bring me email ideas and all that stuff. And they'll be like, do you like it? And my answer to them almost always is, it doesn't matter what I like. It's what people want.
Exactly.
If I'm going to shoot down all of your ideas and then turn them all into my ideas, for one, I don't need you. Right. If they're all my ideas. For two, I like what I like, but I'm not built like everybody else in the world and I'm not the market. So put it out there and test and fix and optimize and make it better. If you send out your email and got, 50 leads, or you change it to my email and we got 5 leads, like we're only going to know that my email got 5 leads and yours didn't ever exist.
Yeah.
Right. And so as an entrepreneur, you've got to keep testing into the market and try things. But the people that you hire, you need to let them do their jobs and take their shots. That's a hard one for that leap between solopreneur and I would call self-employed to business owner is letting go of control and not just doing what you think is the only way to do it. Let's put it that way.
Listen, I could talk about numbers and business with you absolutely all day. What is the number one tip that you would want listeners to take away from this conversation today?
Well, other than what I've talked about so far, is that I think the number one thing I would tell entrepreneurs that are they're in that realm, right? They're in that 5-figure, 6-figure, maybe even low 7 figures, is reach out and find other people like you because it's lonely at the top of that number, right? You're in that business. You don't want to take it home because it causes problems in the household and they're not going to understand your problems and it's going to cause frustration. The other thing is you can't talk to your employees about your problems. Oh, boss man's had a hard time with the $100,000 they made this month, right? They don't understand that you lost $10,000, right? And so what you need to do is find either coaches or find groups that you can have conversations with other entrepreneurs because the problems that you have are not the problems in only your business. They're in every business, right? Get involved with a CPA. Get a good CPA, a good attorney, and a good banker, and a good insurance person. They all have different objectives, but they're all necessary.
Absolutely necessary.
Yes. If a CPA gets their way, you're going to show zero profit and your banker is going to hate you when you need financing, right? if your attorney gets their way, nothing is going to be in your name and no way, any shape or form can anybody attach anything to you. Well, great. Your banker is going to hate you. Right? But you need to surround yourself with good people and talk, right? Don't take things home constantly on your brain, on your mind. And if you have kids, my best advice is when you're with them, you're not going to feel. I know I was a 70-hour-a-week guy, but when you're present, be present. Put that phone away. Put those emails away. Just be there, even if it's half an hour before they go to sleep every night, like I was. It was, but my time, you need to be present and be there because it will have lasting impacts. And so don't let the business overwhelm you. And I guess that's really what my main point is that reach out to people that can show you a better way to do business. Because if you're struggling, and most business owners are struggling, there's camaraderie in there, but there's also solutions that have already been found. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you're struggling, don't be embarrassed. Get out there and find somebody else that knows how to either fix your struggle or struggling also, that you can talk your way through it.
That is just fabulous advice and actually very refreshing. I don't hear a lot of people say it so eloquently and dish out such great advice. So thank you for that.
Sure. Businesses are people, businesses don't have problems, people do. Right.
Yeah.
And so we need to remember that because it can ruin you.
Yeah. If you're not careful.
Yeah. Or it can do the other side of it too. I'll tell you that. Right. If it's going great, there's nothing like a great business running high. So, that's what we chase, I think. So,
so if listeners want to, check you out on your website or shoot you an email or follow you on social media, where can they find you?
Yeah, all the socials are there. You can find me as Cody Loughlin, or a lot of times check under Money Talkers. But the Money Talkers podcast is really a great medium if they want to learn and get into deep dives with some amazingly successful people that I have fortunate enough time to spend with them to really deep dive into different kinds of businesses and mindsets, because it really all starts there, right? It's really all built into the mindset and the way that we're thinking and the way that we're approaching problems. It's not really the problems. And so I would say that that's probably some of the best ways. And if you got questions or you want some advice or anything, I'm available. I love talking about these subjects, and I love trying to help. I love trying to help entrepreneurs.
Awesome. And I'm going to leave your contact links in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a blast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you listeners for listening. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Think Like a CFO podcast with Melissa Houston, CPA. If you've enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. Your ratings and reviews help more people like you find our podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share this episode with someone you think would love it. Until next time, I'm Melissa Houston, and remember, nobody will ever care about your business as much as you do. So never give your financial power away.